September this year will be 26 years that we've been married. 26 years. I know. Who can believe it? But this morning I was reminded of something that happened almost 27 years ago. When we first met, before we were engaged, before we were even really seriously together, I looked at this beautiful 25-year-old woman and I said, "Will you run to help me stay in shape?" And she looked at me and said, "Do I look like I need to run?" Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast. 5-minute videos, 5 days a week. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. Let me tell you, this morning at 5:15 we got up and we went for a walk, a little over a mile. It says it's 75 degrees out there. It feels like 1,075 because we have the Houston humidity sitting on us for some reason right now. And so I was drenched by the time we got back, but it was the fastest pace that we've walked with our little doggy as long as we've been walking around our neighborhood together. And I said, well, we're getting close. We're picking up the pace a little bit. I mean, a 17-minute mile is still really slow, but we need to, continue to go. Soon we'll be up to a jog. And no faster did I paste it on social media than she replied and said, there will be no jogging. Apparently the same mindset is still there from almost 30 years ago. Do I look like I need to run? It ain't happening. Now, why do I bring that up on a Leading Leaders podcast? Because there are many leaders, organizational leaders, team leaders, who never ask the question of their team, what is it that you're comfortable with? What is it that's in your wheelhouse? Now, we all know that on the employee side, on the team member side, we often get, that's not my job. That's not in my job description. They don't pay me enough to do that. We get those kind of excuses and the hands thrown up and the pushback. But what we forget a lot of times is that's the leader's fault. And it could be the leader's fault because A, it simply wasn't written in the job description at the time that the person was hired. Well, because we didn't know we were going to need someone to handle pandemic paperwork and log everybody's temperature when they came in. There's not a job description in our organizational chart that says stand at the door with a thermometer and make sure people have a mask on. It's not in there. It wasn't there from the beginning. Until April of 2020, nobody needed one. But now we do. In fact, in some organizations like a Walmart or a Home Depot, that's a full-time job. That's a full, from the time we open to the time we close, kind of a job. How many people are in the store? How many of them came in wearing masks? How many of them have a temperature over XYZ or under XYZ? How many of them have had any symptoms? Even the hospitals that I go to, they have that kind of protocol. If that was never written in your organizational chart, as a leader, you've got to find someone willing to do that job who doesn't have the pushback and the reluctance, but maybe has the personality to be a little disarming, the personality to be comforting to people as they're coming in. People are all feeling the inconvenience of this, but that's the leader's job. You don't just pick somebody at random and go, you, go do that. Well, some people do, hence the problem. But see, it's not just that kind of task that really nobody wants to do and everybody feels like it's beneath them and it doesn't really suit anyone well because it's not a job that anybody would hire for, right? I mean, would you go apply for the job to stand at the door and take people's temperature? Probably not. But if we think of all the other tasks and assignments and jobs within the course of our employee career, how many other things will we have said, I don't really want to do that. That's not really a job I want. And so the challenge we have as leaders is finding positions that suit people's well-being, that suit people's nature, their character, their education, their training, their experiences. And yet at the same time, let them feel like they're accomplishing something worthwhile. See, it's real easy to get caught up in that train of, I don't care what you want to do. I don't even care what you like to do. I need you to do what needs to be done. Plain and simple. Well, in 26 years of marriage, we found that I do the majority of the cooking and at least my fair share of the kitchen cleaning and the dishes doing and that kind of stuff. But I do 95% of the yard work. And until my boys were old enough to help with the yard and help with the cars, things like basic automotive tire changes, brake changes, oil changes, that was all me. So if it happened outside the house, 99.7% of it was done by me. Inside the house, she does the majority of the laundry and the majority of the administrative work, even though she doesn't like either one of them. See, the division of labor is the leader's role. And part of it is to say, what are you the most competent at? What are you the most qualified at? What are you the most capable of? And sometimes you just want to smack a phone because it doesn't want to turn off when it's supposed to. Sometimes you find that there are people who have a certain skill set, but no passion in that area. They have a great ability, but they're not willing to do it. Well, where do you go from there? If that's what you hired them for, then they're just going to have to get over what they want to do and do what they're hired to do and do what they're good at. But sometimes you can strike a balance and you find those things that people are really good at, they really enjoy doing. It's not laborious for them and it's not tedious for them. They just kind of look at it and go, I like doing dishes. I like cleaning the house. I like running the numbers. I like keeping up with the books. I like balancing the checkbook or balancing the ledger. I like meeting people at the door. And when you can find that balance of someone who's really good at something, it's in their natural talents, it's in their natural space, and they have a skill set that matches the need of that job, then you're doing a good job. See, the challenge with a lot of leaders is this. It's really easy to put someone in a box and then just kind of cram them in there like Play-Doh until they fit in the space. It takes a little more effort, concerted, intentional effort, to design the box in such a way that when you find the right person, they just slide right in. But that also requires taking the time to find the person that fits in it. Here's what I tell a lot of people that I coach, especially entrepreneurs. Whether you're leading volunteers or you're leading employees, especially those starting out, if you don't create the box, the need, the job, the task, the assignments, all of the possible skills that will make you best at it, if you don't design that and define that before you start looking for the person, the odds of finding the person are almost zero. If you have the box well defined and you know what kind of person, not just the education, the degrees, the past experiences on the resume, but the kind of person that's going to fit well in that box, that's going to fit well in your team, then it's almost like they come out of the woodwork. I love the way John Maxwell says a very similar thing. He says, we tend to hire people for what they know, and then we fire them for who they are. That's what happens when you judge solely on the resume and past experiences in education and completely leave the character out. You've got to look for the person. The box you're trying to fill has got to look for the person with a certain skill set and a certain character too. If you have those two things together, it will be almost like every time you're standing in the grocery store line, you'll see a person that meets that description, and resumes will be a whole lot easier to sort through. Good leaders understand the dynamics of a division of labor and assignment, pulling together the tasks that have to be done and the character that makes them possible. Otherwise, you may find yourself in that place where your running buddy doesn't want to run. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.